got it. Okay, so this is official. Welcome to Engaging Students in Zoom Sessions. So here's our agenda. We're going to start with the pedagogy and then move into more technical aspects of how to do some of the things that we are talking about. But first, just for fun, in chat, where do you want to go when the quarantine is over? When we could just freely roam about the world and go to Bouchard Gardens and etc. Go ahead and put in chat. Where would you like to go? There it is. Sorry. Okay, I want to go to Catalina for some reason. I'm going to write mine, Catalina Island. Las Vegas, Paris, anywhere in North America. Oh, we got two. Oh, Truck wants to go to Paris so bad he had to add it twice. Okay, so some of the material that I want to share with you today is from, this book is about 10 years old now at this point. I had the privilege of working with Ruth Clark. Some of you may know her. She's known for people that are like hardcore instructional designers. She looks at research and converts it into practices for practitioners. And so I worked for Ruth, and so we wrote this together, and I was heavily involved in a lot of the examples and graphics and samples and so forth. So let me first I'm going to ask you to use chat. Just cite for me a couple of differences that you've seen between Synchronous, such as using Zoom or Canvas conferences. Those are the synchronous tools that we support. And the more, quote, traditional online, where you do not meet together. Just cite, when you think of the difference, what are some differences? Please add it to chat. Okay, Russ says, Synchronous is more effective and personal, period. Whoa, no opinion there. Async is not live, absolutely. Meeting time, right, you have to have a specific meeting time. What about you, Karen? You have a comment? What are some of your impressions? Your impressions about synchronous versus asynchronous? If you don't have any, that's okay too. Okay, so let's keep going here. This is a comic from our book. I'll give you a second to look at it. It's not hilarious, but it just kind of gives a point here. Oops, I'm sorry, let me go back. Okay, so our enemy is distraction, right? That's every teacher's enemy, but now we can't even see our students. So this fellow, he doesn't even act like taking an online course is even anything. He'll get on the phone and talk to someone else. So our enemy is distraction. And it's not just that it hurts our feelings, of course, but how can they learn? So we're going to talk about some ways to engage students. When I was thinking about this session, I was also going to be doing a session for the international group at Extension. So I've been thinking about this, and these are just some things, and I was doing some reading, and these are just some ideas that came to mind. And then what I'm going to do, though, is I'm going to tie it to some of the stuff from our book. So being together may support motivation. I think Russ was kind of pointing to that in his comment, you know, that we see people, you know, we kind of bring ourselves up for the session, and we interact. It feels more natural. And one thing, when I was rereading some of the book, it talked about the social conventions. And when someone's talking directly to you, you tend to listen, right? It would be rude. You're watching a video, who cares? You can, when I watch a movie, I am mending, I'm doing dishes, I'm doing my bills, right? There's no, you know, convention that we pay attention. Let's look at the second one. This is a big one. Pacing of content may not allow for reflection. So imagine that I'm talking to you and you're trying to learn, and I've given you an assignment at the same time, or I show you a complex graphic. You know, I ask you to do two things at once. So this is one of the biggest potential downsides you have to be careful of, is this whole thing of cognitive or mental load is heavier when I imagine like I have this pipeline, I'm pumping information at you, right? We don't want a lot of other things happening. Whereas if a student's reading, you know, they can stop, they can relax, they can read a little bit, they can watch one of your online videos, they can control their time. In my opinion, though, it's a little bit of it's kind of a two-edged sword, because some people, I just said it's motivating, right? So as you can imagine, there are some people who are more motivated by having that time. They got to be there. They got to be there at 6 o'clock. They're going to log in. They're going to commit to it. And yet there is this thing of the fatigue of data coming at the student. However, it does allow for the second bullet, the third bullet here, student-to-student interaction is possible. It's a very visual medium, which is good. Visuals always help. Interactions and students allow students to get to know each other. This next one, real-time sessions allow for real-time updates. So I've been in e-learning, oh my goodness, 25 years or so, a long, long time. So we always talk about the stability of content. So you tend to put things that are less stable in these more updatable kind of media, such as these live sessions. So for you guys who are, probably every one of you has something that touches law, right? Maybe there's, like I know, like in HR, there's tons of laws that you guys have to keep on top of all the time. And in business, there's lots of laws. Education, there's a lot of laws. And these change. And so things that are very changeable, or if you want to bring in a current event, this is a great medium for it, because you haven't had to write a script and shoot a video and make captions and all these things that are very time intensive. So these are great for things that are changeable, you know, discussing how students are doing at the time, etc. The last bullet says, now this is a downside, synchronous is better for homogeneous students in terms of the knowledge of the topic. I don't mean anything else but that. So, you know, if you know, and Russ was, I don't know if you guys heard, he's sharing a story about a client where they were really high up in quality. Am I right, Russ? You just give me a thumbs up. Quality in general, like, you know. And so he adjusted, but fortunately they were all high. Now, what if some were high, some were low? Synchronous doesn't accommodate that as well. However, you have this huge toolbox, right? You got Canvas, all the tools in Canvas. You have, if you want to use another tool, let us know. You have, you know, all of your skills that you bring. So you're not just, quote, stuck with the synchronous. You can supplement. If you have students that are further behind, you can give pre-work. You can set some stuff to help. They can do collaborative work with each other and help to bring them up to that level. But because synchronous is by definition synchronous, and we're pumping data at the students, right? If they're not ready for that pump, they can struggle and have that overload at the time. So that is a risk. Okay, so this is from the book. Here's a key features of synchronous. So these are some of the big chunks of things that are considerations, key features. It could be a plus, it could be kind of a minus. So, and I'll go into detail in each one. Communication mode, we can also call it medium. Rehearsal, which is the same as practice exercises. Pacing, that's a big one. I also already talked about that pipe that comes at the students. And social learning, which we also kind of touched on. So what I did is I took my little, brain dump and I said, how would this fit into the categories? And they do. So communication mode, I mentioned this is good for visuals. Rehearsal, synchronous is good for practice exercises that allow students to get together, potentially, okay? Pacing, we have to be mindful that it's fast. If you want them to work on things, that might be better for them to do after the session or to do in breakouts, but not while you're talking, unless you can really pace it well, like have maybe a worksheet or something that they can work on during the session. Social learning says they can, being together may support motivation, and they can interact with each other and get to know each other, which is a big part of the value of being at a university, right? Is the wonderful relationship that you can have with students that role model that you play for them, that, you know, that person with so much knowledge about a field they want to get into or get better at. So this is their chance to get to know you, and that's a great benefit of Synchronous. So what I'm going to do, let's go back. So I talked about 4 things. I'm going to go into detail on each one. The first one is communication mode. Synchronous is great for this. It allows you to have text, graphics, audio, video, including me, my video, okay? And you can screen share and show video. This is a caveat. So there's a gentleman named Richard Mayer. He's at UC Santa Barbara, and he has done studies on multimedia. And so he came up with this thing. He's got many principles, but this modality one talks about, again, kind of that pipeline. How much can the student's mind handle at once? If I have a very complex visual, like when I showed you the comic, right? If I keep talking, you can either listen to me or you can read the comic. You can't do both at once. So I tried to be quiet for a minute, okay? If you have a complex diagram, maybe you only show a piece of it at a time. I've seen some crowded slides, very crowded. So maybe you spoon feed it, show one piece at a time, or maybe it's a graphic that just has blocks, and then you start to add text to the blocks or something. And you don't even need any, or maybe you don't have any text and you just explain it with audio narration. But you can't just pump a bunch of media at one time at the student. It's too difficult. And then you move on to the next slide. And I've totally seen people do that. And it's harder for you to even know if they're getting it, right? Because you can't see them. So that is the caveat with this medium. The next one was called Rehearsal, if you remember. So we said communication modes, Rehearsal. And this, we have a number of principles under Rehearsal. Practice should mirror the job. Now, fortunately, you guys are all in professional programs because we don't have anyone that's like a math teacher. My background is more in the professional side. So this would say, use realistic scenarios. And you probably do that. Your textbooks probably have case studies, and that's probably a no-brainer, right? You have real cases, real projects students work on, etc. The next one is the concept of distributed practice. And this I don't think is as obvious. And this can help during the session with remember our guy was like taking a phone call during the session? If you have required practice activities throughout. So what this says is content practice, content practice. If you, and I'm not going to give you a certain, number, but say you have an hour session and you have a practice each 15 minutes. So there's 3 practices. They better get off the phone and pay attention and participate. So that helps to engage them if you distribute it. And another idea is now you also remember your larger e-learning universe includes Canvas. So during your session, you distribute your practice, but then they're going to be in Canvas and they might do a quiz, an assignment, a discussion. They're going to continue to distribute the practice throughout the session. And I haven't seen it so much at Extension, but we don't want to make a student's grade be based on one midterm and one exam. That would be, unfair to the student, and we don't give them the chance to show knowledge of little pieces all along the way, which is what we want. Let's see. This last one, faded examples. What this refers to, fade examples into practice, is the concept of worked examples, which means that maybe something is partially done. And especially in a synchronous session where your time is limited and maybe you want as many people as possible to participate, you might have something that is partially done. Say you have a project management schedule. I'm just going to make something up. And maybe you just ask specific questions about it. You don't ask them to create it during the session because that would take too much time. So what Ruth found in her study was that her, library research was that people got a lot from doing part of a practice. They don't always have to do the whole thing. And I really love showing things and asking students to comment on it. And that can be done very nicely in Synchronous. I mean, depending on what it is. If they're maybe reviewing some document or something, you could do breakout rooms for that. And so this is this example of it's a worked practice. the work product is done, either done or partially done, and they're kind of filling in a more efficient manner, if that makes sense. And another word to the wise that I like to do is always keep student examples. And then the students have so kindly provided an example for you. So you need to ask their permission to use it like the next term, but then when students say, well, you assigned a 5-page paper, but I don't quite get, what that should look like, say, oh, well, here's a nice example of student from last year. You change the name, change the company, whatever, and you have these nice examples. Okay, I'd like you to put in chat some activities you have found to be effective. This can be in synchronous or in asynchronous. Okay, and I'm reading some of your comments from earlier. Thank you very much. Okay, so Sharonda says, I like polling and breakout. Excellent, so you're already doing that. Russ says breakout every 15 to 20 minutes. Good. Ooh, Karen, Jigsaw. Karen, can you unmute? And I am familiar with Jigsaw. I don't know if everyone is, but can you please explain just in a few sentences how you structure a Jigsaw?
Yeah, I was just thinking in terms of what you were talking about, presenting case studies, let's say. You would break it up into pieces, and each breakout room would have a piece of the article or the case study or a focus question, and then they would simply focus on that piece, not the whole picture. Then they come back from the breakout rooms and each group would present their chunk or piece until you have the total picture. And then I've done screen share where we've done working outlines where they've added and I've added as we go.
That's excellent. I think both of those are good examples of this concept of worked example, that they do parts of it. We did a Jigsaw when I worked for Ruth. It was a different one of the books, and we assigned chapters to students, and it was about designing courses. And so each student would read a chapter. It was kind of complicated. Then they would present to their group on their chapter, and then they would work in their group on a product. They would apply what they learned on a product. So there are two parts to it. Jigsaw is sometimes just a teach back, but I think, Karen, you're also talking about like a work group where they're working on a product, which is great. And you guys are in very, very applied programs. I love hearing your examples, and I'm going to steal them. I'm going to probably call you in a few weeks and ask you, I'll ask you right now, if anyone wants to share some of their ideas on our community. I put it in the newsletter, our instructor newsletter. Our community course has a discussion board for sharing examples, so sharing ideas. So please feel free, and if you're not sure what I'm talking about, you can email me later. Or maybe with your permission, I'll just steal some of the chat stuff. This is great. Thank you very much. Okay, whoops. Okay, so the next topic was pacing. Remember those 4 items? Communication modes, rehearsal or practice, and pacing. So I've kind of put the different categories, and I think maybe it's cutting off. I'm sorry about that. So under synchronous, paced by the instructor, this imposes greater cognitive or mental load, but it provides that social element, okay? People can ask questions and discuss. In asynchronous, the learner can control it, but that requires a motivated learner, right? And so you get to know your learners. But on the good side with async that's that time for reflection and the time to do some of those more difficult activities. Okay, and the last topic was social learning. Under the right conditions, students can learn more from each other. So this is a proven thing if it's structured properly. And here are some of the tools, and Truck's going to tell you more about that you can utilize during the session. Breakout rooms. We had one teacher who used Canvas conferences, and she had the students make little paired rooms for group activities. So that's something you can do. Or in Zoom, you can set it up for them. That you're never even in those meetings, but those are working meeting times using the same tool. Here's a few points about group activities. It says, assignments that involve design or problem solving are more appropriate, right? Not just something simple. If we're going to get together, let's really hash it out, like a case study, like Karen mentioned. Keep the groups small, and define how they're going to work together, right? We don't want the slackers and the control freaks, right? That's always the risk. Okay, my last topic before we go to truck is this concept of how you could structure your classes. So imagine at a topic level, okay? Now we're actually starting at the bottom, so hope that's not confusing. So before class, so Bloom's taxonomy is talking about, this is an educational concept, how difficult are the learning objectives in general. So at the bottom are the easier ones, remembering, and then understanding, apply. As we get to the top, these are considered more complex activities or learning objectives. So before the class, the students can do these lower level. They can read the textbook. You could even have a nice little quiz in Canvas, right? Did you learn it? Did you do it? Or write a little, maybe they have to turn in 3 things I learned or whatever, something like that. And then during the class, you can work with the students. This might be more of a demonstration. So during the class, imagine you're showing them how to do, I better stick to what I know, project management. You're showing them how to use Microsoft Project and create a schedule. And then after class, they do it on their own because they have, oh, you have an animal, Russ. We have another student. We have a cat.
I was wondering if anybody would notice. Yes, I'm a full-time cat concierge in my non-teaching time, and she has decided to invade my life.
That's fine. That's fine. We won't charge.
She's been recognized. She has now left.
Okay. So we're going to move up the level of difficulty as we work through the topic. So before class, maybe they just have some readings, some videos. You can record mini lectures. During the class, you can demonstrate these higher order activities. And after class, they can work on their own. And also after could be the time when they work in pairs, right? You do group assignments and so forth. So that is a way to help you think about how you can parse out, what do I do in the synchronous sessions, versus the asynchronous. And here's an example. This is for, let's see, talking about how to write interview questions and conduct the interview. So 1 through 3, imagine, is kind of over time, okay? So pre-work is a reading. In session 1, they teach you how to write these non-discriminatory questions, and then on their own, they write them. Out of class, they read about the guidelines, and then in class, they do the demonstration. Now, maybe out of class, we've had some teachers that use these synchronous tools to have students get together and do and record an interview or role play. So we can even add a 6th one, which is they do the practice on their own. And this is my last slide. I'm gonna hand you over to Truck. This is my last, oh, I'm sorry, Truck, I got one more after this. Here's another one, and I like this one. This is, imagine, a web design course. So they do the reading, they get a quiz. The teacher does a mock usability test. So that's that demonstration, right? In class, or we're talking virtual class. Okay. And they ask the students to email their project ahead of time with any questions they have. And then, the last one says they do, if you like this word, cognitive apprenticeship. The teacher walks through each student's assignment. Maybe they take one day, one the other day, or do a few. And they walk through their expert mental processing. Well, I would have done it this way. I see why you have a question. And I think it's a very good use of the time. In fact, I had really successful just one-on-one sessions with a synchronous tool. I was on an educational technology course. I was a teacher at APU, my last school. And man, we spent an hour just ripping through the students' websites they were creating. And have you thought about this? And I had a good product to reflect on. And that time was, I thought, really valuable. So that's another idea, is one-on-ones and synchronous sessions. And the last thing I want to talk about is production process tips. Make sure you test the tool before your session, and then create documentation. It can be very simple, but what are you going to do? I'm going to show 3 slides, and we're going to do a question, and make sure you have a plan. The time goes really fast, and you guys are all experienced, so you know that. Any questions before we move on to Zoom? You can just call it out if you have any questions. Okay, Truck, I want to give the floor to you. Should I make you a host?
Yes, you can make me co-host, and we'll emphasize on a point on that one.
Is there someone named Carlos who's in the session? I didn't see you come in.
Yeah, he came in just about 10 minutes ago.
Okay.
Welcome, Carlos.
Welcome. I'm going to make you a host. I think that works better. Okay?
Okay, sounds good. Hello, everyone. So today, I just want to share with you some of the tips and tricks about the tools that are available to you. Based on your response and reaction to the chat, I feel that you are very comfortable with using Zoom already and some of the features that are, built into Zoom. So I just want to cover the basics and maybe share with you something that you haven't seen before. But before we get started, I just want to cover the basic for Zoom. If you're already teaching a class with us, then you already know how to activate your Zoom account, and you probably know how to share it in Canvas. But if you haven't yet, if you haven't taught a class in Canvas and haven't used Zoom to teach a class for UCR Extension, you need to have to activate your Zoom account and be familiar with Canvas. And the cool things about Zoom and Canvas is that they have this integration. I'm not sure if you are familiar with this integration yet, but if you integrate Zoom into your Canvas, it actually works hand in hand, where you schedule a Zoom meeting in Canvas and it will populate that meeting in your student's calendar. So this integration is very helpful when it comes to reminding students. If they check the calendar, they'll see that it's there. So something to keep in mind. And if you do need assistance with that integration, please reach out to us or visit the UCR Extension Instructor Resource page. There is a short tutorial that allow you to tie those together. And if you're gonna use Zoom in the long run and teach classes at UCR Extension in the long run, I highly recommend it, and might as well get it connected. So just going back to the basics, there are 3 ways you could access Zoom. The first one is the Zoom portal, where you just go to the browser and type in zoom.us. So that's the first way. And that's a very important portal too, because from there, later on, I'm gonna share with you some hidden settings that you could turn on and off from there. And the other way to access Zoom is through the Zoom application. I think if you are here today, you probably downloaded the application already. And the other one is access Zoom through Canvas. And that required that integration that I mentioned earlier. So just some basic I just want to share, and we'll go on to the next slide, okay? So as far as breakout rooms, it seems like everyone here have used breakout rooms for their courses. But to think of breakout room, just think of it as a physical breakout room where you allow your team, your groups to split into groups, have group discussion and brainstorm a topic. And that's a great way to allow the student to interact. Because remember, even though we're in a digital learning landscape, we still foster or promote that interaction between our students, because that's how they learn together. And so going back to this feature, if you've discovered it already, then you've seen it before. But if you haven't, I'm gonna go to the web portal where we're gonna look at some of the settings that are hidden in the Zoom web portal where we turn on and off, okay? All right, so I'm sharing with you my screen. So as you can see, this is the instructor resources page that I mentioned earlier. Here you could find some key components, tutorials for the features that I mentioned earlier. However, let's go back to the topic of the Zoom web portal. So when you log into your Zoom web portal, you are, what you see here is a setting. If you go to your profile and you go to setting, you can see that you could actually turn on a few features here. And I'm gonna do a quick find of breakout room. So by default, you might not have these features turned on, but if you go into your web portal, you can see that you're able to turn it off and on. So in this particular setting, you could turn on the breakout room on and off. So I wanted to share with you another feature is the whiteboard. So all these options are available in your Zoom web portal, and you need to go to setting and meeting to turn it on or off. So be familiar with it. Because you have to be familiar with the tools in order to have an effective class session. So I highly recommend that you should be familiar with the settings here. So let me move on to the next topic.
We have a question from Sharonda. Can you create breakout room participant assignments ahead of time?
Yes, you could create the breakout rooms, and when the participant comes, you could either automatically assign them into those rooms, or you could manually assign them to those classrooms.
You would do it during the session, Truck?
Correct.
Okay.
Bear with me 1 second here, guys. All right. So next, I'm going to share with you the PowerPoint that we have here. Just 1 second here. Pardon me, guys. I'm trying to find the. And could you do me a favor and bring up the PowerPoint for me one more time? And I apologize, guys.
Sure. Let me move your
You can stop.
photographs
Yeah.
out of the way. You're the host, Truck.
Yes, that is. I'm sorry. I apologize.
Do you want me to make?
Yeah. Let me just bring you back real fast here. All right. Go ahead. And
Is that good?
yes, that's great. That's great. All right. So the next, so when you're in the breakout rooms, you're able to assign, create the number of rooms, assign the user to the room, and you could come and leave each room individually, just like as a physical room where you pop in and say hi to the student and see how they do. And for the next one. Yeah, so polling, I heard that Sharonda have used polling before, but what I wanted to point out is that with a polling, it's a great way to create interaction. It's like a clicker, when you're in a face-to-face environment where you keep the student engaged and have them actively involved in the classroom activities. So in order to turn on this polling feature, by default, you might or might not have it. So going back to that, the importance of having that web portal access, it's where you could turn it on, that feature on, and create the poll. And I think Anne is going to do a quick demonstration of how the poll is being created, deployed in a classroom. So the things about poll is that once you create the poll, you the student make the action, cast their votes. You got to find a way to retrieve those data. So I'm going to show you when we get back into the web portal how you retrieve the action that were created by the student when they cast a vote on the poll. So Andy is going to launch the poll as a quick demonstration for us. I think it's available on the bottom of the screen as well. And yeah, sweet. So as of this moment, you can see that this poll was created prior to the class. And as an instructor, you could create multiple groups of poll. And in each group, you could have multiple questions. So if you could please just go ahead and cast your vote on here for us. And what Ann did is that Ann just shared the poll results with the classroom. However, as an instructor, you might want to access to the result of these polls later on down the road. And you just want to see, how the group is performing. So in order to do that, you need to go into the back end of the web portal. And could you just point to the report? Yeah, the report area, yes. So, and if you could go ahead and click on that for me. Great. So once you're in the web portal, you go to the report area and click on meeting. You're able to see the option of pulling out the poll report.
So you want to generate, right, Truck?
Yeah. And then from there, you could generate and see what, who casts what vote and what the result is going to be. So as of this moment, maybe it's too new because we just cast the vote of the poll. So it might not show the result immediately. However, given the time, 30 minutes or so, you're able to see exactly the result that we've seen. So just to circle back to the topic of poll, you could create the poll, create interaction with your student, and review what your student have done by going to the web portal and going to the report and see what they have done. So it's very critical that we need we are familiar with the web portal and turn it on and off some of those features.
You want to go to the next slide?
Yeah, let me see what Karen just has a question right here for us.
Okay.
Oh, yes. So Karen just wants to know where can you create the poll on the front page. So in order to create a poll, you would go into the back end as well. You would go to the web portal, and under the meeting that you've created, there will be a option where it allows you to create polls for that particular meeting.
Let me try to show it.
Yeah, if Ann could just scroll down to all the way at the bottom. So there it is. You can see that you're able to add more poll groups and question to an existing poll, as long as you have access to the web portal of that meeting. You can't perform you can't create these polls from the application because it will tell you to link to your web portal. So I highly suggest that you get comfortable with the features that are available in the web portal. All right, guys?
Okay.
So let's go back to the PowerPoint and we'll correct. Yes, once you populate it and in the polling, you click on the polling on the bar of the application bar, you see the poll that are available. And I will definitely circle back to your specific question near the end and clarify all details for you. And for the next tool that I want to share is a whiteboard and annotation. The whole idea of having a whiteboard is to allow multiple users to draw and make annotation on this particular whiteboard. For this subject, for this tool, a great subject I want to bring up is math. It's quite difficult to write a math formula on a Word document because you don't have the freedom to draw freestyle. So when you get to that subject, it's easier to use the whiteboard. With the whiteboard, I highly recommend that you have a stylus connected to your laptop, because I'll give you the freedom to write as freely as if you were writing with a pen or pencil. I truly recommend for you to employ the use of a whiteboard when it comes to the whiteboard. The next feature that I want to share is file sharing. And earlier, and if you could go back for me real fast, yeah.
Sorry about that.
No worries. Earlier, you mentioned there was a question about how you could have Zoom being active and access to Canvas at the same time. And this is where file sharing come into handy. When you are using Zoom as a tool, all your focus is in Zoom. It's kind of hard to tell them to go here and there. And why you want to share a file with a student and have them get immediate access to it right away, you can see that there is a file sharing icon in the chat area. And coming back to the importance of the web portal, that feature is also needed to be turned on or off in the setting of your Zoom account on the web portal. So I can't emphasize the importance of your familiarity with the web portal. So as far as having the file sharing feature, it's great to share file with student instantly, create less of a distraction, and you don't have to tell the student to go here and there. So it's all there under one platform.
And when you set the settings in the back end, the web portal, is it for your entire account versus one meeting at a time?
I believe that is for the entire account.
Okay.
The poll might be specifically for a particular meeting, but for the setting, it applies to all the meetings that you create now and future.
Okay, cool. Do you want to go to recording now?
Sure, yeah. And when you are using Zoom, you are on air. Just circling back to what Ann has mentioned earlier about pacing and giving student time to reflect on the contents that you've taught during the lecture. Recording is a great way for them to have some time to think about it and check on some key points that the instructor made during the lecture. And it's a great way to archive teaching materials. You might want to reference into another class later on. Or if a student is missing a class due to an emergency, you could always refer to that. And with the internet, let me share with you a situation where an instructor could not conduct her class because her entire block, the internet of her entire block went out, and there was no way she could conduct the course. And giving the situation that everybody is online as a lot these days, internet connection could be an issue. So be aware of that. Poor internet connection. Sorry for that typo there. I put collection there, but it's good to archive the lecture and grant access to that lecture later on to the student. And as far as recording goes, we always recommend that you record it locally because we don't know how long your lecture is going to be. Recording it locally allow you to have it on your computer, and you have to re-upload it to Canvas. So the analogy of Canvas and Zoom is Canvas is like a library, and then Zoom is like a tool where you conduct all your lectures and recording and upload it to Canvas or the library, where the student could go there and read or access those recordings. We highly recommend local recording because it gives you a more space as far as computer space wise. We don't want you to have a hiccup in the cloud recording if your space is running out. And to record, I think everyone here is quite familiar with the recording option that are available on the toolbar. You click on the record button on the bottom of your Zoom, you see the option of recording it locally or onto the cloud. And I believe Russ have a question.
Recording is one of those things you do have to turn on, right? That's always there.
Depend on the configuration, but I recommend that you should go to the setting and verify that it's on.
Okay. Okay. Would you like me to go to the next slide?
Sure, yeah.
Oops, sorry, I went too. Sometimes it takes a while and then I go too far. That's what I keep doing. Don't you have tips?
Yeah, no, I'm gonna just for some tips and tricks that I want to share with everyone today. I mean, I noticed that a lot of us are familiar with the virtual background. Russ done it, but a virtual background is quite fun when it comes to conducting online class. It just create a little fun along the way of teaching online. With no face-to-face interaction. The other tips is that when you're recording, you're on air. Look at the camera because everybody is looking at you like it was face-to-face. As far as interaction-wise, when you create a question, give some time for the student to react to the question. The internet might not be as fast as the face-to-face interaction. So just remember pacing, looking at the screen, because you're on stage. Those are just some basic tips I want to share with instructors who are teaching using Zoom and Canvas.
Okay. Are there any questions for Truck? You can just say it out loud or put it in chat, whatever you like. Any questions on Zoom?
Yeah, feel free to type in chat or just shout it out loud, and I'll be more than happy to answer it for you. I remember a question earlier from Sharonda asking about Canvas. So Canvas has a conferencing tool that's available in there. It's another tool similar to Zoom. It's allow you to conduct a video conferencing just like Zoom. Depending on your familiarity with the tool, you could use that or use Zoom. But the majority of people out there use Zoom because of the flexibility that it gives. As a student could access the Zoom link using their phone, their computer, their tablet. As far as the Canvas conferencing feature, they have to log into Canvas, and sometimes it might not be convenient for them. One other difference I want to stress: if you wanted to bring a guest speaker to your class, if you're using Zoom, you could easily invite that user, make them a co-host, and allow them to conduct a presentation immediately there. As far as the Canvas conferencing tool, you would have to enroll that individual as a student and allow that student to speak during the meeting.
I do think the Canvas tool is a little simpler. Like I had a brand new teacher who was new to both tools, and he did, just today we were discussing it, and he chose conferences because it's just a little easier. It's right in Canvas, but you bring up many good points. I think sometimes there's that balance between it's easy, but it's not as feature rich or something like that. So they're both very good tools, I think.
Karen has a question. Can student access the video feature in Canvas with their student access? Yes, Karen, I just want to double check. You're referring to the Canvas conferencing feature, correct?
Correct.
Yes.
Yeah. So,
Yes.
you know, you have to have the student ID for Zoom, as you were saying. So if you invited a guest speaker, it's more difficult for them to access the
Absolutely.
UCR protected Zoom. But if they're a student on Canvas, they do have access to that video feature.
That is correct. So
Okay.
basically, Canvas is a great gateway in itself already. Once you pass that gateway, you're able to access to the conferencing, the Canvas conferencing feature. So just a quick note on that one. If you create a meeting using Canvas conferencing, it automatically sends out an invite to all the students to come. In order to do that with Zoom, you either have to integrate Zoom into Canvas, or individually send it out to all your students, or post it in a module or an announcement. So these are some of the pros and cons, and it's a matter of preference. However, if you're familiar with the tool, you easily conduct the class in any style that you want. And that's what we want our instructor to do, is to be comfortable with the tools. And I always want to use this example. Instructional team and the e-learn team, we're here to help. And if you've ever seen the Verizon commercial, and you know, wherever you go, there's always that big, huge team behind you. And we want to be that team to make you successful.
That's right. That's right. Okay. So very last thing for today is I would like to copy. I'm going to copy we have a short eval, and I'm going to stop sharing. I'm going to paste it in our chat. And it's just a few questions. If you could just do us a favor and take the survey, I would appreciate it. And we can keep talking, but I want to make sure we get this up. So,
Karen, I just want to circle back regarding the creation of polls. Are you comfortable with that aspect, or do you want me to clarify more on that feature?
No, I think I got it. I'm going to play around with it a little bit when we're done here. But yeah,
yes.
I think
Yes, ma'am. Yeah,
Thank
absolutely.
you very much.
I think the coolest thing about the poll is that the reports is it's come in handy if you really want to analyze how the class is doing. And you could use a poll as a quiz, a pop quiz for your class. I've seen that before. So if you want to take it to the next level, you try that and have a pop quiz, you know, using poll, and then with the report you can see how they done on that pop quiz.
And while Canvas is integrated at some level with Zoom, the data from the polling does not pass to Canvas. But if you wanted it to count for points, you could create a separate assignment in Canvas and manually enter, you know, a graded and enter it if you wanted to. So that is an option for you, but it's not automatic. The quote integration happens more in that left navigation, that it's available, and it kind of puts those little walls around meetings associated with this course. Oh, Karen, thank you. I messed up on my, okay, here's the link. Sorry about that. I put the link in for the eval. Thank you, Karen. Please go ahead and click on that. And
we just want to say thank you so much for your time,
yes.
You know, coming and listening to what we have to share. We really want you, every one of you, to be successful in using these tools and conducting your class.
Chuck, can I give you a virtual high five? Good job, man. Any other questions? We'll just leave this up for a little bit. Make sure you take the quiz and the survey, and then anything else. Any other questions?
From my experience, you know, the integration feature of Zoom and Canvas could be tricky from time to time, but I want to remind everyone that if you do come across any issue, just send us an email, and we'll give you a call, and we'll activate and link those in for you. In the long run, I think it will be very beneficial. So whenever you wanted to, you know, kind of play around and then take Zoom and Canvas to the next level, try that out.
All right, I think we'll shut her down. Once everyone's clicked on the link, I think we'll say good night. And thanks for coming. And if you have any, colleagues, we're going to do this again Wednesday at 12. If you want to let them know. We're also going to share the recording on our instructor resource page. And we're going to have a session July 22nd and 24th on accessibility and universal design. All right, I think we'll close down. Thanks, guys.
All right, guys. Have a good night. Bye, everyone.